Ta-da! Welcome to Josef Hi-Fi in my pursuit for sumptuous sound. This is video number 9. We're going to be talking about speakers. Before we do, we've got to get a few things out of the way first. First of all, yes, I don't have my Nikes on. We don't wear shoes in this room. We like to keep it a neutral zone, so I'm in socks. Don't worry, there's holes in them, so we're holy and I'm blessed. No, I'm just kidding. Needless to say though, the other thing is this video is going to be big. If my passion for music hasn't come across in the videos or the equipment as yet, you're certainly going to know about it after this video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break it up into 2 pieces. I'm not going to do 2 separate videos on speakers. What I'll do is I'll just do basically a quick summary just to crystallize what I want to say about the speakers, what I have and sort of what I want to do, just a real quick snapshot. And then I will go and discuss it in length. I've spent a few months writing some things down, and all the sentences make good sense, and there's no way I'm ever going to be able to sort of rely on that. So my wife actually suggested she'd be happy to hold pieces of paper up for me, and we'll try and do that. I don't want to do a script. I know it can be too boring when I'm constantly looking down at the paper. So she's more than happy to step up, and we're going to try and work our way through that. That's later on in this video. So as a result though, for your patience and all of this, obviously while we're going to be doing videos as they go on from 1 to 11, which is the core purpose of the entire hi-fi system in its entirety. As you can imagine, there will be future videos that will come out in time. Everything from talking about records and music that I like, and even the test songs I use when I'm sort of calibrating and sort of trying to A and B reference systems and that. We all have our own. Will be an interesting video later on down the track. But as a bonus for you, it'll probably be video number 12. During the artwork, I was quickly rattling off about all different brands and that I musicians use. Things like Marshall, Steinway, all those names we know that are important in the industry. Aside from the musician themselves, it's the tools and the instruments that they use. And I thought what might be quite entertaining is I will get the camera up there, and we'll actually just a reasonably quick video where I'll just go over each name and what it's all about. For those of you that may not be aware of it, obviously we're working in the pro industry as well, so I'm sort of aware of a lot of those brands, whether it be Shure, and not just talking about styluses as I was in the last video, but indeed talking about Shure as in microphones and things like that. So I thought it might be fun. I'll just sort of go through the artwork rather than focusing on the artists, which is obviously the fun of what we all like to do with it. We'll have a look at the other things, and I say it because in the video you can't always clearly see all those names that are there, but they're all there for a reason, and I thought we'll talk about that in a later video. It's my gift to you. Needless to say, speakers. Let's get on with it, the first part, the summary. So what have we ended up with here? Well, these are Cerwin Vega XLS215s. As far as I know, there are none here in Australia. The distributor could not even get them based on the logistics of them. So we have no intention of getting these imported over to Australia at all, and that's a bit of a shame. But let me sum up the speakers. I'm standing next to this one here. Obviously there's another one on the other side of the room. But let me sum these speakers up in one sentence. I hate you so much, you beautiful garbage angel. It goes without saying, these are not the most prettiest of hi-fi speakers. That goes without saying. They really look like they belong in a nightclub or something like that. And that's legendary with the Cerwin Vega thing, any more than the iconic red rings on the surround. But there's a bit more to these. They might not be the hi-fi purist's first choice, but they're not quite what you might think at first glance. As I said, there'll be more in-depth later on. But at the end of the day, the way I like to describe sound, everyone describes things differently. I really thought about this a lot, and the best way I can describe sound, that note you hear, that impulse of the sound wave from its peak and then its trough in the wave, is a hug. Now, all hugs and I'm talking about hugging someone, and needless to say, not all hugs are good and not all hugs are bad, but that's the whole thing about sound. Not all is good and not is all bad. But let's think about the hug in its sense. especially when it's a loved one. And we'll use that in the sense of the good positive vibes we can all feel. Especially it might be a spouse or a family member, and you haven't seen them in a while, and you come and give them a hug. The hug is explosive, like the sound. The first thing is the grab. It's holding you. It's especially if it's someone you love. You're holding them so close, you can feel that beat of their heart, just like you would hear that sonic boom in the bass of a note or something like that. As you're holding them in those split seconds, a lot of things are racing through the mind. It could be, that's a beautiful fragrance they're wearing. Or, oh wow, it feels like they've lost a lot of weight, or they've put on a lot of weight. It certainly could be a situation, smells like they had a curry for dinner, or oh, they're back on the sauce again. Look, who knows? There is so many senses coming alive in those seconds that you're having a hug, like the sound, you know, that opening note on something. And when you're hearing a song, the endorphins that get released in your brain, it's incredible. And as a result, with a hug, as with the music, there's the decay, the moment where you're sort of letting go. The hug ends and you start coming away. And just like speakers, it's that tonal quality, it's that decay in the sound. And that's the thing, as opposed to when we're studio mixing and that and really working on flat sound and all the rest, it's really what separates every speaker in every room to everyone's ear is the tonal quality of how it's going to sound and come across, and that decay in the sound that resonates back to us. So that's my description of it. Needless to say, so what I wanted with the hi-fi setup though, I really wanted strictly in the hi-fi sense, no subwoofer. So I do appreciate big sound from a big woofer. I love the look of the big system. And without taking too much time in this first half, because people might want to skip and carry on, so I'll just keep to it. What I would like to evolve to is probably a pair of KRIX. KRIX speakers are made here in Australia, South Australia, Hindmarsh actually. They're known throughout the world. In fact, I think there's a percentage of more than 50% of all cinemas in the world are driven by KRIX loudspeakers in them. Our home theatre next door, that's a whole KRIX system, and I'll get into more depth about that later. But they do make hi-fi speakers, and from what I've heard of them, and I, because obviously being in Australia, I get to hear them, they're brilliant. And I guess the other thing is the footprint is not quite so big, a little more elegant. Happy wife, happy life. Needless to say, a beautiful soundstage. I love this because I want the big soundstage, a big soundstage. Even when it's quiet, I still like to hear the beautiful lows. I still like the snap. And at the end of the day, so we've got two 15-inch woofers here. We move into a mid-range and then into the tweeter, or compression horn in this situation. The sound is fantastic. It disperses well, and even if you look at some hi-fi reviews, these are a bit of a surprise. As I said, I'm a big fan of AC/DC. I like seeing a big rig. I like seeing big speakers. They sound fantastic. They might not quite fit the decor at the moment. It is what it is. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap up this portion of the video. So the next one we're going to move on to will be video number 10, and we'll be going in discussing the VU meters, the rack equipment, and a bit about the future, about what we might be seeing. On the flip side, if you'd like to sit back and enjoy, I'm going to talk a bit more about speakers in general, a bit more about these, and just a bit more about coming from the pro industry, about what differences can be had. Needless to say, I will have my wife doing our auto queuing for us, so we'll change the setup now, and I look forward to humouring you again. Needless to say, I will try and keep the video down where I can, and I hope you enjoy. Thank you. Welcome back. For those that have decided to stay and see what the rest of the speaker segment has to offer, just going to elaborate a little bit more on the speakers themselves. So unfortunately it's not in 5 minutes, and I do apologise, but I hope you can appreciate just a few different ideas and opinions of how I'm coming about the sound anyway. It goes without saying, we're going to start just this secondary part of the video with Steve Gutenberg. The audiophile has a YouTube video I recommend you seeing regarding bigger is better with speakers. Bigger speakers are better. We're not going to discuss headphones, we're not doing any of that, we're just talking about speakers. And I also like to just take this opportunity, as you can see, just trying to change it up with the backdrop, so I thought I'd just shoot in a different location here. I've got my wonderful wife Monica is being my auto cue at the moment. I have a few notes that I can't remember all in this section, and I want to try and just keep flowing where I can. So happy wife, happy life, although as she always says, happy spouse, peaceful house. You know what kind of video I'm making here? All good, I'm just stirring you. So, okay. Let's just whip over. Steve Guttenberg there at the audio file on that particular video is talking about the musicians themselves. When they're performing and creating the music, often for those that are using instruments like electric guitars, bass and the like, they're usually plugging into equipment and amplifiers, and their cabinets, whether they're connecting to Marshall or Ampeg or Mesa Boogie or Orange or Vox or Line 6 or whatever it could be that they like their preferred sound coming out of. Generally those cabinets usually consist of 10, 12 inch drivers inside of them for that instrument. So I guess it's part of the idea of bigger speakers is to trying to recreate that soundstage, so to speak. If that's what they were capturing it on, if they were using a series of maybe dual 12 inch speakers, then if you've got a hi-fi stereo that's got 12-inch speakers, somehow you're at least tonally trying to hit that equivalent. Now, of course, I'm not in any way saying that's how it is. We go to all different shows. We put on our headphones, which are much smaller drivers in there, and we're hearing absolutely tremendous sound. But I'm just trying to get across the approach I like to see, and especially when we think about big instruments. I'm thinking here about grand piano, thinking about double bass, or even the bassoon. I absolutely do love the bassoon. If you've never been blessed to see a TV show called Rumpole of the Bailey, I recommend you should check it out. I rank it up there, right up there along The Sopranos and some of the other great shows that have existed in our time. But just go to Rumpole and Opening Theme and just listen to that piece. There's people that have performed it as well. It's usually performed by a 4-piece bassoon ensemble. But as you listen to it right to the end, the notes that get sustained there at that 100 hertz and less, it really is something else to hear. And that's one of those sort of notes that I can sort of hear on a good system. Where it's sustained well, where we've sort of come from being on the low end of a woofer to the sub. There's just that sweet spot where you're hearing it where even the best crossovers can't quite match it. So by hearing it on a big speaker and trying to envelop it without having a separate sub is something else, and that's what I'm trying to achieve in the hi-fi setup. Needless to say, these Cerwin Vegas, XLS215s, they came with a guaranteed eviction notice, and they also come with a spare fuse, which has a sticker on the little bag that says party fuse. Thought it was just a little bit entertaining to share that with you, but big system, big sound. I have a series of songs. I'd like to say it was my reference cassette or CD. I still do like to cut a copy of that CD and take it with me where applicable to hear A and B when I'm hearing it on a person's sound system or different speakers, or even if it's my own equipment. It's or playlist as it is these days, where you carry it on our phones and we have it on MP3s and all the rest of it. But it's my A and B sort of test for my ears, hearing particular songs on different systems. 2 tracks that really, really stand out, and again, I'm more talking about the low end here as opposed to the high end. 2 tracks in particular. One would have to be, not that this is actually on that playlist, but I'm going to point this one out separately. I always find it's interesting to hear on a good 2-channel stereo. It would have to be a track by The Offspring. The song is Self-Esteem. And when I hear that bass tickling along, if the system's right, it sounds great. If it's not, it just sounds good. I suppose another one, and one of my go-to tracks I love to, that is on that playlist, would have to be Jimi Hendrix Fire. Probably my favorite Hendrix track. But I think it's on a good sound system. You know, we're not talking about subs here, talking about a good 2-channel system that obviously has a good driver running it. You're hearing that real snap in the drum. So we've still got that grunt in the kick drum, but we've still got the snap in the snare, and that's really something that often you might hear it on another system, but it might not be till you sort of bring the volume up or down accordingly, just to get it tonally sounding right. Especially a song of that era as well, before we sort of had explored the world of better low frequency with the introduction of subwoofers and sort of hitting really, really low notes and that. That's a great song that actually has been recorded right, and it sounds so much better when it's on the right system. So as I said earlier, I DJ, and I do DJ a lot. However, obviously, being in a regional area, a lot of our weddings are rather small, 100 people or less for the most part. So 9 out of 10 times, the jobs I do will just see me there with a pair of 12-inch cabinets there. So 12-inch woofer with compression horn on the top there, and we've got 80 degrees of coverage from each speaker, covering it around. When it's time to party, we still got lots of snap and thump to have a good time. Needless to say, though, when it's kids disco, or it's a bigger wedding, or perhaps we've got a conference or something going on, more than 100 people, we introduce a subwoofer. I'd love to be taking a subwoofer to every job, but it's just not always practical, not just on my back and the rest of it, but the concept is that I do a lot of weddings that are actually on the beach itself. So there they are in the sand, you don't want all your equipment out there, a wedding that might only have 60 people, and of course it's on a tropical island that's a resort, so at the end of the day, there's only so much noise I can be carrying before we're going to be curfewed and have noise complaints. So needless to say, I work within the parameter, but as soon as we flick the switch on, even when I'm just setting up and there's a bit of background music playing, flicking the DSP mode over and selecting to external subs, so just using the stock standard crossover that the PA equipment is using, the sound is instantly elevated. It's so rich and warm and in-depth, and enough that we can't physically see the sub moving in any way. We can't feel it, almost enough that the activity light on it is barely even moving, but it's there. The room is instantly being filled in a really, really enchanting way. And the reason why I wanted to talk is because what happens at that point, I've ended up effectively, without needing to go to complicated EQing and all the rest of it, I've obviously got the tweeter or the horn there doing all the highs. The 12-inch driver has now just sort of been detained for covering mid-range, and then I have a sub to deal with the lows. And as a result, for those that may not be familiar, here's one of our old DJ mixers here. This is long been out of retirement. This just goes out, it gets hired out independently for people that just need to hire a stock standard mixer. We obviously use, we've been using Pioneer now from the get-go. We ended up with the Denon a long time ago. I won't get into it. I've always loved it. If you do a bit of scratch mixing and the rest of that, flex fader, honestly, there's nothing any silkier, smoother. The point is, in its most purest form to each channel, we obviously have a 3 EQ. So at the end of the day, we've got the highs, we've got our mids, and we've got our lows. And at the end of the day, in a really clean and elegant way, and without getting into where the actual cutoffs happen on the PA system itself, is a really excellent way of just hitting the sweet spots when we're DJing and creating that music. Needless to say, when it comes to the hi-fi, I want to go even simpler again. So the reason I really love these particular speakers is obviously we've got dual 15s covering the low end there. We do have a mid-range, and we do have the tweeter there. At the end of the day, I really do love, it's a prerequisite any more than seeing VU meters or needles on the actual amplifier. I really do love seeing just a bass and a treble knob. That's it. That's the only EQing I ever really want to see, and most of the time it's 12 o'clock straight up. I want to keep it the way that it originally came. But sometimes you do want to just add a little bit more thump or just take a little bit of harshness off the top. Obviously on the Pioneer SX-1980, I actually have 2 controls for bass, 2 controls for treble, just to tune out a few extra frequencies there. But just keeping it nice and clean and simple. And with having that sort of full range type of speaker, it just really gives me that really larger than life type of soundstage, which I truly am immersed in and I really do enjoy. I've said it before and I'll say it again. KRIX are obviously the speakers I'd like to be upgrading to into the future. So a bit about the KRIX. Obviously, as I said, in a lot of cinemas and across the world, you'll see KRIX installations. In fact, you'll see KRIX in a lot of installations, commercial places and things like that. But something else about it is, in a way, subliminally, I don't want to say I'm attuned to the sound, but there are some key cabinets that I know when I've been to different cinemas, and, oh, it's the same one there, that's this one here. I know it instantly. And of course, you watch the movie, all the rest of it, but I'm almost sort of have assimilated it partly to do with the sound. I think they make a tremendous product, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much you spend on this, it's only as good as the ears that are coming through. I really do, even though I DJ events now, I really do look after my hearing. I often will put on a tone generator and talk to people, especially young ones are good, as we start to come down, go, can you hear it? Yeah, we can hear it. And then as we keep coming down, go, oh, I can hear it. And then the older people are like, I still can't hear it, I still can't hear it, I still can't hear it. And all of a sudden, they're way getting down the chain there to maybe 11,000 hertz or something like that, something that's just abysmal. I'm still up there, still good, I'm still looking after it. I'm going to age, I'm going to lose more and more, but I've got to look after it while I've got it. But I guess it's important to just make mention about line array. Obviously we're seeing that starting to be introduced more and more. Obviously we've seen it for years being used in pro applications and sound reinforcement. If you've been to a concert or anything like that, you'll see the hangs off PA down in a line array. Dave Ratt from Rat Audio has got a tremendous bunch of videos to explain more about that and goes in depth from that side of it. But the thing is, we're starting to see more and more, even in our industry, we can have these micro line array systems we take out to jobs that sound cracking, but we're seeing it now in hi-fi speakers as well. In fact, it's nothing new. It's existed for some time, but I guess its popularity and application in manufacturing is becoming more, maybe cheaper. I don't know about that. I think the Paul from PS Audio Music Room 1 with the IRS speakers that they have in there, that's a great example, though that's an extreme thing. Any more than I truly think the design in the Macintosh XRT series are fantastic. I would love to have them. I think that would probably be the cream of the crop. I think that really sort of ticks the boxes sonically in what I would look for in a speaker, but I really think that they've done well there, and I sure hope to hear them sometime soon. But at the end of the day, whether you've spent $25 on some speakers, or you've spent $25,000 or $250,000 on some speakers, it comes down to a pretty simple situation. Except for that line array, which I can't truly try because I haven't got it in my house, but I'd love to try that on this perspective. And that is, we're sitting down, listening to the hi-fi, whether it's me and Monica. And I know your arms are getting tired. I promise you we're almost done. Doing a great job. Whether we're sitting there enjoying a piece of music, or likewise you're sitting there with a friend or something else, and you're sitting there for the music. We are immersed in whatever it is we're listening to. And the person next to you, or it could be me, says, "Oh, it's great. Oh, look, I'm just going to get up. I've got to go to the toilet, or I need to. I've got to get a drink. Do you want a drink as well?" In that split second that they've walked across the sound field, it's completely changed. It doesn't matter what I spent. It has been broken to that point. So at the end of the day, nothing's always perfect. We're always trying to achieve the very best we can, but currently trending in the year 2020, there are ads on YouTube and things like that, and on internet ads running about spoil your car today with Wiper Tech or something. They make these U-Boot windshield wipers for your car. Fantastic. I love the idea about that. Oh, sleek, elegant, aerodynamic, all those selling points. Yes, but what about the bugs? If a bug has gone splat on the windscreen and it comes across and smears it, it doesn't matter how good the windscreen wiper is, short of having laser beams to shoot it out of the air before it hits your car, it's still going to be compromised. And the same thing with the hi-fi. Some of the simplest things can just come apart. Needless to say, though, we have a multi-room audio system set up across the house, and that's all great, but nothing really beats the fact why I love those big Cerwin Vega speakers sitting there is that I come along, putting some music on, the doors are opened up, I'm wandering around the house, pottering around the way I do, And then, of course, a track comes on, Pinball Wizard by The Who, and that opening strum on that electric guitar, holy moly, it reminds me what it's like to be alive. It feels like I was there during the recording. It's what I absolutely love about it. Needless to say, that's going to wrap up the more in-depth second part to this video. So of course the next thing we're going to move on to will be the VU meters and the future of what's going to happen. So stick by, stick around, enjoy. We'll see you in the next video. Thanks again.